So now we've got the Tottenham and Arsenal combined team of the decade coming up. We're basically creating one team of the best 11. It's a 4-4-2 formation that we're going with to try and be as balanced as possible. The rules for this were that it was only based off their performances for Arsenal and Spurs, and none of how they performed for the rest of the teams in this decade. It had to be based off their performances of this decade and not previous ones. And they had to play for at least 2 years at one of the clubs to be able to count. Those were the simple basic rules. So I think the place to start now would be the goalkeeper position. So who do you have for goalkeeper?
I have for pick numero uno for the first pick in goal, the French World Cup winning captain, Mr. Sexy Frenchman himself, Hugo Lloris, who I think is pretty uncontroversial as a pick for goalkeeper of the decade of the two clubs. I couldn't think of any alternative. He's been there for 8 years of the decade. He's joined in 2012 from Lyon for, I think it was 8 million, so massive bargain there. He's, in terms of making some phenomenal saves, winning us points. He's made some mistakes in recent times, to be honest, but I think it's without a doubt that Hugo Lloris is the nailed-on goalkeeper for this team of the decade.
Well, I actually disagree with you.
Oh no.
Don't worry. It's not Petr Cech. It's not Manuel Almunia. No, I think Szczesny has been I think Szczesny, for the performances he's given and the stats, and I think he, at least the argument he deserves for it. Funny enough, however people may not know, in the Premier League, Szczesny has more clean sheets than Lloris does. Or not more, he averages more clean sheets per game than Lloris does. So,
well, that's because he's played over a shorter time. It's easy. He's played over a shorter period of time. He only played to Arsenal. As in, he started per game. That's an average, though. It's easier to maintain a higher average over a shorter period of games. Lloris played for 8 years straight with, very, very minimal injuries if you look at it in terms of how many games he's actually played. But, Szczesny, when he played, was most of the time was a backup goalkeeper or something like that. When he started, I don't think he was particularly good. And all you have to do is look at Arsenal's actual response when he was there. You despised him. It's like he's one of these memories that sort of come back after. It's like the same with Walcott and with Bellerin when he got injured. You fans, you didn't like him.
Yes, they did. Everyone respected Szczesny. I'm sorry. When he was there, he was by far and easily the best goalkeeper that we've had in the past, over any goalkeeper we've had otherwise. Like, Leno's not better than him. Petr Cech wasn't better than him. There was no way that we can. I don't think anyone. He had a couple of weird games where he just wasn't at his best. But the man, he was pretty good for Arsenal. He made some pretty crucial saves. He kept a clean sheet in an FA Cup final for us. How
about his massive blunder in the League Cup final, which is in the decade?
That was the wrong decade, mate.
No, it wasn't. 2011.
No.
This decade, wasn't it? Birmingham's 2011.
Was it?
Fact check me on this. Pretty sure.
Okay. Well, I still think I still think Szczesny has been the best player over.
Yes, it was 2011. 2011.
I still think Szczesny.
But also, you have to take into consistency.
The stats are there.
It's a decade team. The stats are not there. It's a team of the decade, not a team of a year or two, maybe. Right? Lloris has been the best goalkeeper.
The rules were
one of the best.
The simple rules were he had to play for 2 years. If someone's got to now go, someone played for 8 years, so that makes them better.
As in if the 2 years were sufficiently phenomenal that they can outweigh 8 years of much better consistency, because at the end of the day, what a goalkeeper is about being consistent and making consistent saves and winning your team consistent points. It's just massive fraudulence from you to argue for Wojciech Szczesny, who is such an average goalkeeper. I don't rate him at all. Also, he's scum and he hates Tottenham.
He made more saves per game. He had more complete clean sheets per game than Lloris. The stats, in my opinion, what?
When though?
I'm saying in his 100 and whatever Premier League games, he averages more clean sheets per game and more saves per game. If you want to know the exact
I've explained
numbers,
why it's easier, but it's easier to maintain a high quality level, it's easier to maintain better stats when you're playing over a shorter period of time, right?
It's not like he played for like 10 games. He played for over 100 games. Chesney played for Arsenal. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think it's comparable though. Lloris has played probably I think 200. I'm just fact checking me here. Lloris has played much more than 100 games with Tottenham. He's played 246 games with Tottenham. Right, it's over double. It's almost triple. He's played way more, so therefore he's gonna have made more mistakes maybe. But overall, it's much harder to maintain it over 8 years than 100 games, most of which were not against high quality opposition, most of which were in like League Cup games and whatever. But yeah, I think it is about consistency, but with the goalkeeper, and it's similar to defence. And when we get onto that, this one's going to go on for a while. But yeah, it's about consistency. And Lloris is much more consistent than Chesney.
Fine. Listen, I understand where you're coming from, and at this moment in time, I'm willing to compromise for you here, and Lloris can go in goal for the goalkeeper. It's hard, and I don't see the stats to back it up, but there's been a lot of criticism in the past over these players, and Lloris, he's won a World Cup, which I think is fair enough. Like, he didn't do it for Spurs. He was great, and I feel like I'm willing to compromise. I'm willing to compromise here in as Lloris in goal. So we're going to agree there. The right back is Bakary Sagna. The left back is Jan Vertonghen, which moves us on to centre backs, which is somewhere Vertonghen could have got in. So since he's now playing a left back, who have you got as centre back? We might just both agree here.
Maybe. My nominees, I guess you can say, for centre backs, I had a couple of them. I'll be honest, Vertonghen was one of them. He's not anymore. He's been taken. I think we can go with Toby Alderweireld. I think is for a similar argument than with Kyle Walker's part of one of the best defence, the joint best defence in the league in 1 year, and then the best in the next year. Generally a consistent, solid performer. As for the other part, the other centre back, I thought, why not? Let's be nice. Give it to some Arsenal people. Ledley King would have got, but he's only there for like 1 year or 2 years of the decade. He retires in 2012. Michael Dawson, just out of sentimental value alone. So I think that maybe Mertesacker. I think Mertesacker as an Arsenal person can maybe get in, or if you think there's someone a better Arsenal version, I'm happy to hear it. But I don't know. I think Alderweireld for me is nailed on. The other I'm sort of up for discussion or persuading on.
Well, I agree. I had Alderweireld in my 11. I didn't actually have Jan Vertonghen because I didn't think about putting him in left back, because my other centre back was going to be Laurent Koscielny. He may have left on bad terms with Arsenal, but he has many stats to back it up. He was our captain for most of this decade. In my opinion, he has the stats to say he's better than Jan Vertonghen as a centre back. But we put Vertonghen at left back, which means I think Mertesacker, okay, he was decent. He didn't start enough games, didn't play enough games, and to be as consistent as Koscielny was. There's a lot of, it's interesting. Alderweireld didn't do it for as long as Vertonghen and Koscielny did, but he still is clearly the best centre back. And actually, if we're talking about a traditional defender who's a centre back, Alderweireld gets in fair and square, I think, for me. And then Koscielny, I think, is the other man. His interceptions are 2.73 per game. His aerial duels, he won 2.6 per game, and Alderweireld had 1.5 aerial battles won per game, and interceptions only at 1.07. So Koscielny was in those specific aspects was very, very, very good. So he was a ball aerial winning and ball winning and ball-winning defender, which is kind of a very traditional role. Koscielny also has a lot more goals than Vertonghen and Alderweireld had. He has 22 goals at Arsenal, and Vertonghen, in the same amount of time, bar like I think one season, he had one less season, only scored 6. So Koscielny had goals in him as well. I think. It was
give up. You've already won. You've already won this one. Just stop.
Koscielny and Alderweireld are for me the two centre backs. But I think it's fair to put Koscielny in because I think he was better. There's a defense. That's the defence now sorted. Moving on now, I think we should probably start with the two central midfielders. I think we're fair to say you don't need defensive midfielders. You could have two number 10s if you want. That's kind of the perspective here. It's not what would be the best. How could you design the perfect team to play a game? It's just who are the best players that go into the team. So the two central midfielders, for me, are both Arsenal players. One being Santi Cazorla, who I think has been exceptional. Who was exceptional for Arsenal this decade. It was close. It was between him and Aaron Ramsey for me. I just think when you look at Arsenal, what Arsenal miss, Santi Cazorla it was just better than Aaron Ramsey. The other central midfielder for me is, and I'm ready to battle this out because I think it's basically between these two. But for the other one is Mesut Ozil versus Christian Eriksen, and for me, the stats of the past decade say Mesut Ozil is the better player.
Ooh. Again, for midfield disagreements, and there was a lot of options to pick in the midfield from Spurs and Arsenal. So I'll just list a couple of them out. Why not? For me, the two that I went for were, I think, Modric and Ozil. I think we agree on the Ozil front. When he was good, he was good.
Interesting.
But Modric, I think Ballon d'Or winner Luka Modric. That was obviously after Tottenham, but I think the quality of him at Tottenham was phenomenal. I think his ball playing skills. He's inspired me to grow my hair out long. An all round great guy. It's pretty close between him and Santi Cazorla, but I think that. I don't know. It's hard because most of Modric joined in 2009, so technically he does it before the decade. He joins before the start of the decade, whereas Cazorla joins 2013, if I'm right there.
2012.
So therefore, he's got more in the decade. Yes, I think there's a thing of Cazorla doesn't do it for as long really, as in it's probably because of injuries. He does it for when does Cazorla leave Arsenal?
He was there for 6 years, but he was injured for probably the last year or maybe year and a half. Modric, I don't think was at Spurs for very much of his stay here though, right? He was only here for 2 years, I believe.
He leaves in 2013, I think.
I think it was 20. I think he played the 2010, 11, and 11, 12 season, so he must have left after that. So 2012 he left.
I'm not sure exactly. It's
I am sure.
2 or 3 years in decades.
I am sure. I researched this. He left in 2012. I've done my research for him as well. I checked about. I was thinking. Does Modric get in? He just didn't have enough for me going over Cazorla. I don't know what your argument is for him over Cazorla.
I don't know. I think it's a tough one. I'll be honest, but I think that we see the quality of them. The fact that he's gone of what they've done in their career, of what they've gone on to do. I think this is a bit unfair because it's not including just what they've done at Arsenal and Tottenham. But I think that does have an indicator on how good they are.
No, also with Cazorla as well. He was brilliant for Arsenal. He just an injury. You can't judge someone based on them getting a career-ending injury.
Do you seriously think that Real Madrid or Barcelona would consider Santi Cazorla?
If he'd been fit, remember he was getting on a bit. He was already 29 by the time he got injured, so he was getting on a bit. But when he was playing for Arsenal, any Arsenal fan will tell you he's vastly missed because he had everything going for him. He had goals, he had assists. He created chances, everything he had going from him. And the stats that you look at, Modric, his time at Spurs, he didn't do that well. He might have gone on to do great things, but he got very few goals, got very few assists. In fact, goals and assists of this decade for Spurs, Luka Modric combined per game averaged 0.18 goals and assists per game. That's quite low. That's an assist and a goal every 5 games. That isn't that great.
I mean, fair enough. It is fair enough. I mean, it is true. I think it is similar. We can't do this without my like perception of these players of now coming in. And I think Modric now is very clearly a world class player.
Yeah.
I don't think Santi Cazorla. I don't consider him in that like bracket of world class. I don't think I ever did. I think that's relatively fair.
In my opinion, Moussa Dembele has done better for Spurs than Modric did.
That was one of the examples that I was going to bring up. I don't know about better than Modric, but I think in terms of at how technically good the footballer was, Moussa Dembele is the GOAT. Is phenomenal. I think Pochettino talked about this. Is that he said that he was up on a level with in terms of actual quality as a footballer. He was up there with Maradona and with Ronaldinho, who he both played with, which is a very high compliment to pay. I think there are a couple of other options. I think you've probably mentioned. I think Eriksen. I think that I don't know. When he's good, he's phenomenal. Recently, he's been not. It's similar to Ozil. I think we should do this. I think if Eriksen versus Ozil, I think Eriksen wins that.
Well, you were willing to put Ozil in your team, so I don't know how much.
But I'm reconsidering that.
I don't know how much you can actually think about how that argument works. Because you were willing to put Mesut Ozil in your team. So yeah, I don't think you can. I don't think your justification will be purely out of spite of wanting to have 2 Arsenal midfielders. But even then, Mesut Ozil created more chances than Eriksen did this this decade.
Eriksen scored more than him.
Eriksen scored a few more, but Mesut Ozil got more assists. And remember, a lot of Eriksen's goals would have come from free kicks. So
not true.
From dead ball situations. Well, 7 of his goals came from set pieces. Whereas, so I feel like you're judging someone based on that. Also, when we're talking about midfield,
how's that relevant? As in,
when we're talking
he scores
about
free kicks, it's not a negative.
No, it's not. But then, if you're looking at both of them, I looked at these stats. It was really fascinating. They were really close. Goals and assists.
Eriksen edges it.
They're bang on. They're bang on goals and assists. They both have the same amount of percentage of goals and assists per game of the decade. Mesut Ozil had done it for a few more games. So based on your facts earlier about who's played longer, doing it for longer, I think Mesut Ozil. Also, you have to remember the season he had. He broke Premier League record of assists in a season. Yeah, the man had 19 assists in a year. You look now, Kevin De Bruyne is the only one who's doing that. So you're looking at an assist season where he was just as good as Kevin De Bruyne, and Kevin De Bruyne is pretty much the best player in the league. Most people agree. So you have to remember that season. Cazorla goes in the team for me. I think
we can do Cazorla Ozil. I think we can do that.
I think
Cazorla Eriksen.
I think because 1, you put him in your team already. 2, I compromised earlier on the goalkeeping position. I think you might not like it.
On Walker.
You might not like it, but you have to give it to Mesut Ozil. You put him in your team, and you only after hearing me say Eriksen have you started considering him.
No, but that's true though.
You can't.
It's true that I think it can. I think it's fair to put Eriksen. I think it's fair to put 2 Arsenal players as well. But I don't think Ozil works as a person because I don't think Ozil does it for as long. I don't think Ozil is as good. I think Ozil's. I don't know. I think Ozil's done it for like 1-2 seasons at his best. Eriksen's done it for much longer.
Over more games, he's got better stats. So you really can't be giving that argument.
No, as in over more games. Like if you have, I don't know what his stats are. You've got his stats in front of you. But in terms of he'll have more assists, but the more assists over the assists average out. The assists are heavily weighted down to that one season. I think he got 20 something assists in that season, right? So if you look at the rest of his stats, they weigh out and they aren't actually as good over time.
No, another stat that I looked at was their how much they lost the ball.
You ignore me there.
No. I'm hearing what you're saying, but another stat I looked at was how much they lost the ball, and Eriksen lost the ball a lot more than Mesut Ozil was, which is quite an important thing for a midfielder. Eriksen's pass completion was only at 81%, and Ozil's was at 87%. So I think that's another stat you have to take into consideration over a lot more games as well. So being consistent with your passing percentage is a lot more. And obviously you can just look at who passed the ball back more. But it's not that. Mesut Ozil is a very forward-thinking player, and I feel like you have to give me some compromise here. You put him in your team.
I've given you compromise. I've given you compromise on Sanya.
No. You put him in your team. You can't get rid of him now. We can't keep on doing this.
Okay? It is with much regret and sorrow that I'd like to announce that I've lost this argument on the Ozil Eriksen situation. I still think he's better, but I need to back that up with stats, and I haven't done that today. So I apologise for my poor performance, and to the entire Spurs family. I am disappointed in myself. But to move on to the wingers now. But again, loads of options we can go for. The options I went for were on the left. I went for a Woolwich player, which was nice of me. I'm giving you favours. Please give me Eriksen. I went for Alexis Sanchez on the left wing.
Same.
When I watched him at Arsenal, I despised him, but I thought he was good. And on the right wing, I went for Bale with a little brackets of Son. But I think Bale wins it for me.
I didn't actually think about Son.
Bale, yeah, sure. I mean, with Bale though, Bale had one phenomenal season with Tottenham in the Prem and in the decade. I mean, maybe two, arguably, in the decade. Son has had more than that. Son has had, I think, 3 or 4 now seasons of 20+ goals, whereas where compared to Bale's one season of phenomenal excellence, Player of the Year, Young Player of the Year, world record transfer after that. I don't know. I think I love Sonny, but I think I'm gonna go with Bale. I think you agree.
Yeah, I've got Bale. I've got Bale in my team as well. He didn't play that much this decade for Spurs. He had a lot of games. He had injuries during the beginning of his Spurs career, so he played a lot in like the late 2000s. But yeah, I put Bale in. It is a lot again. It's gonna be clouded by how he's done afterwards and how he got such a huge move. And even though people say now he didn't do great at Real Madrid, if you remember at the start, he scored some phenomenal goals for them, Champions League winning goals. Also for Spurs,
I don't think that's fair to say that. But, yeah.
Also for Spurs, he did score some pretty amazing goals, just significant, just individual goals. There was that game against Inter Milan in the Champions League. Most Spurs fans will remember. So yeah, I've got Bale in ahead of Son. I didn't really think about Son. It feels like maybe current players are harder to think about, like who's been the best over the last 10 years because they're still playing and Son's still playing, and he's still doing very well. Alexis Sanchez for me, Arsenal missed out so much on him. No one wanted to see him leave. It was kind of. There's been a few players this decade that it's happened to, where players have left and no one wanted to see that happen. And only good thing to take about Sanchez is he hasn't done so well moving on. But Sanchez, at his time at Arsenal, he averaged a goal every 2 games, which is quite a decent stat to have for his time there. Not even thinking about assists as well that he got. He was a creative player. He got us into the Champions League a few years, which we would never have seen happening without him. So yeah, Sanchez gets in and Bale gets in. Son, I didn't think about him enough to put him in. So I think we can just agree there. Sanchez and Bale are the 2 that get in as the wingers.
Yeah, I think maybe in a couple of years people will think more about Son as like a contender for maybe than the next team of the decade. People think about Son, but he only did it in the early 2020s. That's a future conversation, very literally.
And then moving on to strike now, it's going to be controversial, in my opinion here. So let's just hear what you've got first.
We have 2 strikers. We have two strikers, right? We have 2 strikers. So the one I went to, which I think you're probably going to argue with, but I think any person who's rational and sane will not argue with, is Harry Kane. He's the one option. And then for an act of kindness to the Woolwich faithful, I gave. I couldn't decide. There was 2 options. There was either Van Persie or Aubameyang. And I'm sure you've picked one. I think you have at least. I hope you have because I don't know. But I mean, I think for me, Van Persie's one season or a couple of seasons that were in the decade, I think edge it over Aubameyang. So I'll go Van Persie and Kane as the two options.
Yeah, Nicholas Ben. I just don't think he did it for long enough. It was close. It was close.
Roberto Soldado, Vincent Janssen.
Yes, the one thing Arsenal and Spurs probably do have is a lot of terrible strikers over these last 10 years. Marouane Chamakh, Nicolas Peña. Emmanuel Adebayor played for Spurs this decade.
No, he was good for a while.
So, yeah, there's been a lot of terrible strikers. Now, you've said there, the two Arsenal strikers is basically toss-up, and I don't think any Arsenal fan are going to argue if you choose the other over one, Van Persie and Aubameyang. But I decided to do some research and look into some things. And
good for you.
And without going into how long they've done it for, yeah, if you just look at the simple, when they did it in each game, because you talk about these players, and we're not talking about players that are left because they weren't good enough or any of that. All three of them could have played more for a start. Kane could have started his Spurs career a bit earlier. They decided not to use him for some reason. I don't know what manager at the time didn't see the potential. And Aubameyang only signed late
Harry
on.
Redknapp.
And Van Persie left quite early on in the decade. But after my research, I came to the conclusion, I think Van Persie and Aubameyang, and Van Persie for me is the player that gets in as an Arsenal striker. Because his stats are just phenomenal. Even his whole Premier League career, his stats are phenomenal. So then it became a toss-up between Aubameyang and Kane. And if you've ever heard me, I will Stanley come down to say Aubameyang is a better striker than Harry Kane based on the stats that he's shown for Arsenal this season and previous seasons. Because it's just a bit unfair with Aubameyang here. I put both of them in. I knew it was going to be controversial. It's just, I feel like Van Persie's better than both of them with his stats. And Aubameyang, it becomes then between Aubameyang and Kane.
I don't think that's true at all, but okay.
It becomes between Aubameyang and Kane. And I think Aubameyang's better than Kane based off how he's done. You've seen all these stats recently about since he's joined. He's got the most goals in the Premier League since Aubameyang joined.
This is an abomination to logic. This is a disgrace to the human race. Harry Kane is nailed on the best striker there. Van Persie did it for one season in the decade. Phenomenal season, obviously, but Kane's best season is better than Aubameyang's best season. And when we the Kane Aubameyang argument, which I think there's, I think Kane obviously is better than Aubameyang, but in the decade, and you think about how long they've done it. Kane's done it for 4 or 5 years now. Aubameyang's done it for 2. Kane's won 2 Golden Boots. Kane's been the best striker for England captain.
Fine, but you can't. It's a bit unfair to judge him. It's a bit unfair to judge Aubameyang based on not.
Everything's unfair. Every single thing's unfair.
Because
if Chesney would have played for 12 more years, he would have been a better goalkeeper.
No, because we're not basing it off were they good enough. Aubameyang didn't join. You're basing off he only joined late on. Look, if we go by what we've been going by. And I feel like I'm probably going to have to compromise by the end of this because we have been going on how the amount of time they've done it for. Yeah, they've done it for longer and those sort of things. And that's how we've been going. So I feel like Kane will be getting into the team. I think, and I don't know, the people that argue with it are arguing it purely based on Arsenal fans get too ahead of themselves. So Aubameyang can't be that good. But Van Persie, he didn't do it for very long, but for me, better than Aubameyang and Kane because Van Persie got a goal and assist every game for Arsenal. Yeah? Yeah, goal and assist every game in the seasons he played for Arsenal this year. And he also scored the least penalties out of the 3 of them. Okay? So, he did
That's a BS stat, but okay.
Okay, but it's still something because someone who hasn't scored penalties it's kind of, that's a bit more. The whole joke about Pepe not scoring.
When you're in that level of scoring, I think that's silly. Yeah.
Okay, but the whole joke about Pepe this year for Arsenal has been, well, he hasn't scored from open play. Like, that means something because he only scored a penalty in the Premier League. Whereas, I feel like penalties are still a thing. people still view penalties. If you just score penalties and tap-ins, it shouldn't count. But so Van Persie for me gets in there ahead of Aubameyang. And if you look as well, if you remember what happened when Van Persie left, Arsenal struggled to find another striker just who was there. We went through so many and no one was up there. So for me, that's why Van Persie gets in.
Not even Nicholas Bentner. Not even.
And I'm willing to say that Kane can get in at Aubameyang for now because he's done it for longer in the Premier League. If we look at next 10 years, I don't know, Aubameyang's getting there in age, but I think Aubameyang consistently can keep that up. And I don't think it'll be long before the debate actually starts being a real thing and it's not just me trying to force these stats down people's throats. But yeah, Kane and Van Persie for me are the two strikers, and I think that's fair to agree on.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, yeah, Kane and Van Persie is the two strikers. Are we? What's the score? Just checking. Have we got a little scoreboard? Checking at the bottom of the screen.
See, the lineup's now there. I believe it's finished 6-5 to Arsenal, which does leave us down to one thing that we did say we were going to do, which was the manager of the decade.
No, but sure, no, we're not doing that. We're not doing that. Cut.
If it's a difficult one to do this one, so I feel like we're safer just not. But yeah, Freddie Ljungberg for me.
Let's play it safe. The manager is Tim Sherwood. Everyone agrees on Tim Sherwood to be the manager.
So yeah, I think when it ended up being here 6-5 to Arsenal in players.
If I can just introduce a new category, Stadium of the Decade. Who wins that one?
This is now like, I don't know, let's do most the best looking team, best looking player of the decade. Let's do that.
Paulo Gazzaniga, hands down. Paulo Gazzaniga.
Olivier Giroud, mate. So yeah, let's just.
No, I'm not having.
We need to finish there. That is the team of the decade. It's going to be controversial. People are going to disagree. People are going to have their own opinions. We've come to our decision there. That's what we've got. If you want to let us know who you would put in, please do. We'd be happy to hear.
If you had any glaring mistakes for you?
Yeah, there were probably some players I've forgotten about. I forgot about Son. You forgot about Eriksen. Funny enough, they were both Spurs players, which kind of says a lot. So yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for watching, and see you.